Welcome back to the second part of identifications that is connected to your feeling, your behavior, and your legitimate. Uh, Sometimes, when I stand in front of a big house, I start to look at the windows and I start to think, how many people is living inside here? And it used to be hundreds of people that is living inside these houses. And if you start to think about that everybody that is living there has a unique brain, and they have their own DNA, and they have their own thought, and they have their own way of thinking. It's like a miracle. It's like a miracle that we are possible to live together. That we have created a system, a social system, where we can live together. And of course that social system is very much built of to have an identity. So you can say quite easy, if we look at the way of identity in the long run, we have started to get better and better. But we have also a society that builds up, break down, builds up, break down, builds up, break down. But in the same times, it has been better and better for the most of the humans. But an interesting question is, should we accept that kind of system when we have a brain that is so smart that we shouldn't need to? What is it that stops us from doing this? Of course, that is the way that we don't handle our feelings and we don't handle our behavior in a good way. I will give you an example that is quite interesting, because this has nothing to do with who you are as a person. I will take one of the most famous football players, Ronaldo from Portugal, that is a top scorer as a person in this world. And if we look at him as a person and look at his situation, we can say that he don't have any problem with the salary and the money. They say that he earns about 33 million euros every year. That means about 5,700,000 euros every week, and 1,500 euros every minute. So that means that he don't have any problem with money. If you just look about 10 years back in a career for him, he will have a pension about 250 million euros to live on. So the money is no problem. Then you can also say that he's extremely famous. He has got the, I don't know what it calls, the balloon for the ball that says he's the best player in the world. I don't know how many times it is, but what you can say about him is that he's also human. He's absolutely human. And I will explain that, because there is a magazine that is called a sport magazine online, and they check all the players worldwide. They check the players worldwide and see and value them in money. And 2020 they did value Ronaldo in 78,500,000 euros. Wow. But this was far away from what Ronaldo thinks that he was worth. That means what's happened with Ronaldo. Because if we have so enormous with money, he get so upset of hearing this, that they only did value him in 78,500,000 euros, that he did verbal really react and told them what a shit organization they were that could value him so low. And of course he did shut down that transfer market. He did block that. And that is because he's like everybody else, like you and me. We act on feelings. If somebody tells us something that is negative for us, we're going to defend ourselves. If we think it's negative for us, of course we don't think it could be negative for a person that is so famous and that has earned so much money. But for him, it is extremely negative because it touched him. I think that can explain a little bit, like it doesn't matter who we are. So don't think that if you're a professor that you will be more human than if you are a blacksmith. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with identification and with thinking. I will go back a little bit in the history because I think it's very interesting to see how we have used identification through the years to make humans not humans. And you can say that in the end of 1800th century, and I can refer to a book that is called Kill All the Brutes, that more or less everyone in Europe, when we did look at people from Africa, we did look at them as not humans. Especially the British people, they did look at them as absolutely not human. For example, 1898, they did take a private person, Leopold II, to be a ruler of an area that is as big as Europe, that has between 11 and 28 million people. And by identifying the Africans people here, they could make it more or less like a sport to go there to kill them, to have fights with them. Because they say it's very important that they're going to be civilizated, like us, because we are civilizated. So they want them to be like them, so they have the same identification when they meet the people from Africa. But they did also recognize that if they act and look like they do, they are not human. And if they are humans, maybe it's better to kill them. So, for example, they did make this as a sport. And they did send troops to Sudan, for example. And in Sudan, they did have English soldiers, 48 soldiers that did die. In that battle, it did die 11,000 soldiers from Sudan, because they was fighting with sticks and the English with guns. And there were 16,000 more that was wounded in that battle in Sudan. And the big question, interesting, is these 16,000 wounded soldiers, all of them did die. All of them get killed. Why? It could be so simple that they was identified as not human. And if you are identified as not human, suddenly you get the right to kill them. But who did tell all these soldiers that they have the right to kill them just because they was Africans? Yes, then I can tell you many times of this, that is people that is quite famous and well known, and that they think are very clever. I would take for two persons that is philosophers, that 1815, for example, did write that thanks to the civilization we have expelling lower beings from the earth. That means thanks to that we have civilized the African people, we have killed a lot of them from the earth, and that means that is good for the civilization if they disappear. That means that we have made them unhuman, and that may give us the right to kill them. Another philosopher, Edvard von Hartmann, wrote 1884, when a dog's tail is to be cut off, it does the dog no favor to do this gradually, inch by inch. The true human friend can only wish to accelerate the extension of the wild people and work for its gold. When you find reading like this, you can easily understand how we can be cheated by identify people in a totally wrong way. But we do it all the time because the brain wants to have an easy solution. So the only way is, of course, to change this, is that we can get as transparent information as possible, as less lies as possible, as more we can know. And the more we use that knowledge for thinking, of course, a better situation we can create both for ourselves and for other people. So when I say this, you can also start to think about it. Can we understand cruel actions, example from Caesar, Genghis Khan, Hitler, and now Putin, that they represent. I think it's quite easy to do that. Because when Caesar did make a thumb down, and they did kill another humans, for him it was not humans, and it didn't has any connection to any feelings for him, because he couldn't see them as humans. His identification of it was that they are, for example, like Putin, for a soldier. I can take this an example that one of the leaders for the government in, I don't remember who it was, but in Norwegian did tell Putin that he think it's terrible, all this killing of the civil persons in Ukraine. And Putin's answer was, people dies in battles. Yes, for him, this is not more strange than a cat take a mouse. So the answer is more, isn't it we that accept that we identify people in a not so good way? And what should happen, for example, if somebody should tell these high leaders that you do something wrong? They should be exactly like Ronaldo, like you and me. They should go into a situation of defending yourself. And when you go into that situation to defending yourself, you stop to think so well. So they will probably defend themselves because they get a lot of feelings inside. And somebody from thousands of years ago will step into the brain and say, stop, I don't do anything wrong. For me, it's nothing wrong. And if you have got the position and identification as a ruler, why in the hell should you listen to anybody? So it's not an option for you. It's you that should tell anybody what they should do. I will just finish with an example that I think is important when it comes to identification. If you have two children that is fighting with each other, for the most of the time, one parent will step in and say to them, stop, don't do this. You excuse yourself and don't do it. And the children will change. Why? Because they are have identification themselves as a child, and the parents as parents. And for parents, they are allowed to correct the children, and the children will accept it. But if you're a ruler, you don't need to do that. It's you that should tell people what they should do, and it's you that should give them some reprimand for what they are doing. I will come back to this in the next chapter model, where we're going to talk about the way we are thinking in a line straight down from God. And but I will finish to say that this is very important to connect it to the brain, to our way of thinking, because the brain react exactly like the encounter did when they did meet a lion in these situations. The only target is to survive the situation victoriously. You want to be the winner. Okay, see you in the next model and have a nice day. Bye bye.